critical thinking, what is chapter 13? Analysis and critical thinking. Chapter 14, problem solving. So chapter 13, analysis and critical thinking. Look, analyzing, applying, it's falling right there in the middle. Problem solving, that's where you're going to evaluate and create something. So the strategies in this book fold in very well to Bloom's taxonomy. And I know we've all seen Bloom's taxonomy before, but it bears a little reminder here that you want to be sure you're exercising all of those levels. So let's go back for just a second and talk about creative thinking and problem solving. What does it look like when a professor understands how to do that? What does it look like in the college classroom? An engaged professor involves students in active learning so that they are able to apply and test what they know. This is what I always say to my students when I'm teaching. I've already been to college. I have a teaching degree. I know how to apply it. It does me zero good to stand up here and just tell you. I have to be sure to take it to that next level so that you can learn to apply it, so that you will know it. If I'm the only one knowing it and telling it, where's that going to lead? So the engaged professor designs the environment so that it's active and so students can apply and test what they know. They help to make connections to students' prior knowledge and experiences. Dr. Turner just talked to us about brain connections, neuroscience, schema. So important. I always think of knowledge and activating schema as kind of like the grease on the wheel. If you've ever tried to turn a rusty wheel, what happens? It squeaks, it resists. What happens if you put a little grease on the wheel? Doesn't it make it go much better? So why wouldn't we grease the wheel of learning by helping our students make those connections and reach into their prior experiences? Anything will help. It's like grease on the wheel. A little bit goes a long way. So you want to be sure that you're crafting some ways to do that. You also want to be a diagnostician. You should be diagnosing student understanding all the time. How many of you have seen the movie Ferris Bueller? Bueller. I love that example because he's definitely not a diagnostician. He's just teaching and whatever. Yeah, he's teaching whatever. Who cares if they get it or not? But if you're constantly diagnosing, in our world we call it kid watching. If you're not kid watching or you're not college kid watching, and you don't make those adjustments on your feet in the context of a lesson, you may have learning that falls flat, or you may give a test and a lot of people fail it. And you might say, oh, those students, I don't know what they were doing. They didn't study that. I taught it. But then if you really go back and dig deep, did you really? How did you diagnose? You should not have a surprise when you give a test. You should be able to pretty much predict the level of learning that's going on. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. You also want to connect to standards. You know, when I go to a play or to church, when I go to church on Sunday, I look in the program because I want to see what's going on. It helps me to know. Teaching with standards is that same way. When you design a class, a learning episode, and you're creating this environment for your students to learn in, give them the reason why they're there. Let's talk about the standard we're trying to reach today. Today we are going to blank, whatever it is, and tell them. That's also adding a little bit of grease on the wheel. But I like to know what I'm doing. I don't like to walk around all day and not have any idea or any clue what's going on. You want to give feedback, and feedback needs to be specific. We talked about that just a minute ago with Dr. Turner, or it might have been Dean Hammett, about praise. Praise and feedback should be specific and related to whatever it is that you are teaching. You want to provide lots of opportunities for work. And number 6 is so important, strategic and metacognitive. You know, metacognition goes a long way. Students should know what they're going to learn when they come to your classroom, and they should also leave the classroom knowing what they did learn or what they're still wondering about. So very simple strategies like exit slips, write down your learning on an index card before you go, make a jot note with a sticky note so that I can know what you did, tweet a response to me, get on a blog and write something, write in an electronic journal. Those are all ways that you can exercise metacognition. When I taught younger grades, elementary grades, it's so hard to teach students to know what they don't know. But it's very important for students to know what they don't know and to know what they know. We have to help them do that no matter what the age. Kindergartners or college students. Very important to do. So the engaged professor, turn and talk for just a second about your role in those 6 things right there. Go. Coming. Yes.
We don't know what metacognitive is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're not in education people.
Okay.
So.
Metacognition is thinking about your own thinking.
Thinking about your thinking. Okay.
So it's reflecting on what you know and don't know.
Okay.
So it's
like metadata. Data about data.
Yeah, it's data about data.
Okay.
It's data about your own data.
Okay.
So it's important to know, because if I'm trying to engage in something and I walk out of a learning episode or a class and I have not learned it, or I have no greater sense of understanding it, I need to know that.
Okay.
So that I can adjust myself and learn it. Does that make sense?
Yep, that does.
We're big on metacognition, I'm sorry. Okay, good. Bring your conversations to a close. And I'm sorry, I made an assumption. Does everyone know what metacognition is? Thinking about your own thinking. But I just had to answer that up there. What department are you? Applied engineering. So they very nicely asked me, we don't, you know, what is that? So that's great, because you were actually exercising metacognition right there, because you were thinking about your own thinking. So yes, so that's what metacognition is. And it's a big principle in education. It's important for us to recognize what we know and what we don't know, so that we can take an action or adjust for what we don't know. So let's look at a few strategies from the book. So I put some strategies up here, and we're just going to do these really lickety-split. Okay, lickety-split. So the first one we're going to do, pages 156 to 160. If you have the book, go ahead and turn there. This idea of schema and connecting to what you know and prior knowledge, we're going to exercise that right now. So you should have a couple of index cards. So take a couple of index cards. No matter how many you have, if you have 2, if you have 3, that's fine. And to yourself first, without talking, you're going to jot what you know about student engagement, like one idea per one card. So if you have 2 or 3 cards, you're going to jot a couple of ideas just first by yourself without talking to anyone else. Just what you know about student engagement. Yep, anything you know about student engagement. What do you know? One thing on each card. Like, don't make a list on one card. I want like one idea on each card. Just do 2 or 3. Yeah, don't do 1,000. So just what do you know? Now, once you get a couple of ideas jotted, I want you to pair up 3 or 4 of you maybe together, or 2 or 3 of you, and I want you to lay your cards out, and I want you to see what similar ideas do you have and group those together, and what different ideas do you have and put those on the outside of that group. So you're actually going to construct kind of like a Venn diagram using these index cards. So group your ideas together, like maybe all 3 of you do it. Dean Hammett, get in there. Mix it up. So, yep. So, yep. Yeah, that's okay though. That's fine. Yeah. So motivation to become engaged. Start class with a surprise. Be interesting. Let's see what you got. Student engagement requires grabbing students' attention. So that maybe those go together. So how would you put these? How would you put these together? What ideas are similar and what ideas are different? So see what you can do. Oh, you guys, yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. So engage, motivation, active learning. Yeah. So which of these are similar?
That's right. Well, the problem with that is
So bring your conversations to a close. And we're going to apply a little bit of metacognition. We're going to apply a little bit of metacognition next. So what we're doing is we're getting you engaged. What were you having to do to accomplish this activity? What did you have to do? Pull from past knowledge. Explain yourself. Yep. Communicate. Collaborate. What else? Connect the concepts. Critical thinking. Listen. Not just to me, but who were you listening to? Each other. You were engaging with each other. So, did anybody find that they had something, or they saw something that they didn't have, that they kind of said, oh, that's a good idea, I didn't think about that? Did that happen in your group? So now who did you learn from? Each other. So it doesn't always have to be the teacher in the front doing the big lecture. Students can learn from one another. This is a great activity to do. If you've assigned a reading that they had to do at home, or you have a concept you want them to connect to and you want to start your class out, have them do something like this. If I were doing this for real in my class, I would probably have students jot like 8 to 10 ideas so that it would really expand. Or maybe I would have them do this in the beginning, and then during a lecture I would stop every little chunk every 10-15 minutes and say, add to your cards. Where do they go? And so on and so forth. I could have them take a digital picture of it and tweet it out, or text it to one another, or whatever. So there's lots of ways to use this very simple activity. And remember, this is from chapter 12, which is the knowledge, skills, recall, and understanding. So let's go to the next one, the number 2, which is artifacts, page 161 to 163. So find that one. And this activity really involves bringing in artifacts that are real or different things that you want to craft thinking around. Because I didn't want to drag a lot of things over here today, I created a document. So if you're on your iPad or whatever, you can scroll down on that side and click the document that says artifacts. But I'm going to put it up here for everybody to see. And we're going to look at it. And because we're talking about, let me see if I can make it a little smaller so you can see it. Whoops, wrong way. Because we're talking about engagement, I had the idea that the artifacts that we would look at would be school desks. So go ahead and look at these school desks. There we go. Look at the different school desks. What do they say to you about student learning? And then justify your opinion by engaging in a discussion with your partner. So look at those desks and then talk about it. We're talking about student engagement. So bring your conversations to a close. So again, what did you have to do to engage in this activity? Well, you had to look at something visual. Okay, no matter your content, you have visual artifacts you could bring in for students to discuss. Craft a question and discuss it. What else were you having to do? Compare and contrast. Use your prior knowledge. Some of you were laughing at some of these desks. Why?
They're making them smaller.
They
used to be a lot bigger.
They used to be bigger. Sometimes now they're smaller.
Yeah, much smaller.
Little House on the Prairie. So how many of you went to school in desks like this? Okay, how many of you in here are left-handed? I'm left-handed, so some of these only Jeannie and I are left-handed. Are you ambidextrous? So I have some not so good memories about some of these desks that are just geared for right-handed people. There were a few. I never got one. I always, never got one. I was very bookwormish when I was little anyway. But the point is, you were all making connections. So I heard someone saying that these desks look like they've evolved over time. So if I were doing this in the real classroom, I could go another step further and I could say put these desks in the chronological order and then justify it. The right or wrong response is not the issue here. It's the thinking that you're having students engage in. So no matter what your content, whether it's engineering, communications, health and physical education, or kinesiology now, education, whatever it is, there's artifacts and things that you can bring in, or you could do something as simple as this, create some type of document, put it up, and let students talk about it. The process, not the product. I'm gonna take this to a product in just a minute, so you're gonna see how easy that is. But were you all engaged in doing this? Everyone was engaged. Good. All right, so again, that's from also from chapter 12. That was activity 2. Oh, the thing in the very middle? No. What is it? It's a standing position desk, and it's got a little foot pedal on it that kids can swing their feet on. So if you read anything now about movement and learning, some classrooms now have those desks. Or they have wiggle chairs that kids can wiggle in and things like that. Yeah. Oh, so you didn't have the schema for that.
I didn't know what it was.
So now maybe you have a little more schema about that. Okay? So let's go to the next one. So the next activity I have is a quotes activity. Remember, all of these are activities you can do in your own content. I just happen to frame them all around student engagement. But the next activity is a quote activity. This is great if you have something you want students to read, or you want them to compare and contrast some different ideas. But I made a quote document. It's on page 167 to 169. But here's a quote document. And I've got 3 quotes up there relating to what we talked about. So read through those very quickly. Then I want you to take one of those index cards, flip it over, and whichever quote, choose one quote that you best connect with. And then jot a few ideas why that quote connects the best with you. So first read, then connect, then I want you to jot on that index card. And a jot is just a jot. To jot. So just jot a few ideas about the one that you most connect to.
When you say connect, you mean positively or negatively?
Either way. That's up to you. You might connect to it negatively, and that's okay in an activity like this. Now, once you've jotted, turn to someone near you and both of you talk about which quote you connected to and use your jot to justify your connection. So talk to someone near you, next to you or behind you, and use your jot card to justify your connection.
Mine was the last one teachers.
Let me see what you guys Let me see what you guys connected to over here. Which ones did you?
You didn't jot. I didn't jot.
Okay, that's all right. A jot note is it's just exactly what it is. It's just jotting a little bit of information. Everybody has different ideas. That's the point. And then you're able to learn and connect with one another. So use what you jotted or what you taught. Just talk about how you connected to the different quotes.
Right.
Okay, good. You guys jotting up here?
We jotted.
Good. Good. Makes students more comfortable.
so that they're more engaged.
So my jotting.
That was from
'cause
before.
That's from before. I didn't because I didn't bring a heat pen.
He didn't bring a pen.
So that's, well,
Yeah. So my jotting is mentally.
He verbally
mentally
jotted.
jotted.
These are
No,
fun.
I had the same one of the third quotes as being a true educational standpoint is a partnership between the student and the teacher.
Good. Absolutely. Absolutely. These are all really easy strategies
They
to
are,
do.
really.
No matter what content you have, you can use these. Which ones did you guys connect with?
Well, I go.
Both on the second one.
The second one?
And I like it because it can be a mental exercise. The thing about active learning is having to be physical.
It is.
But it can be a mental exercise that we take them through.
Oh, and it's referring to activity, mental activity.
Right. Right.
Yep. It's not learning should not be passive. We
Right.
shouldn't just be sitting there. We should be our mind should be engaged.
Right.
Okay, good. All right, bring your conversations to a close. Once again, what were you having to do in this activity? Communicate. Were you having to evaluate? You had to analyze. You had to define some terms, absolutely. Exactly. Such as partnership, what is it? Active learning, what is it? You were actually engaged in active learning. And by the way, when we use the term active learning, we're talking about activity of the mind. So, a lot of times learning becomes very passive. Even if it looks like the student is physically busy, the learning can still be passive. I could do a whole day on the rigor of what you do, because you can go into a classroom, or I'm talking in my world, I could go into a classroom, any grade, P12 or even college, and it may look busy, but actually the engagement may be very low. So what you're doing right now is you're engaging at this you're actually engaging at this higher level, much more so than if I just said to you, write something about the quote that you like and left it there. I actually boosted it up by having you turn, talk, justify, evaluate. You had to do a little more because the expectation was there. On top of that, what am I doing while you're doing this? I'm moving around. Why? I'm ensuring and I'm setting that expectation that if I ask you to do something, I'm also going to hold you accountable. By that same token, I'm holding myself accountable for your learning. If I walk around and you don't know what's going on, that's not on you. It's actually on me. So I need to do a good job on that as well. Okay, so that's 3 that we've done so far. The next one is classifying. Now that one is relatively simple and easy. It's under analysis and critical thinking. Anytime you ask someone to classify something, they have to make a decision about it. So we're going to go back to Bloom's taxonomy. And if you have a digital device, just Google Bloom's taxonomy. Just pull up any document or image on Bloom's. Any document or image on Bloom's. Doesn't matter which one. And what I've got here are some sentence stems, or question stems really. And I want you to just choose a couple of them, 1, 2, 3, however many you want to do. And I want you to see if you can kind of classify them into the Bloom's categories. Would they be an example of remembering something, understanding, applying?